So, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to part two of this 21st century parenting boys versus girls session with Mrs. Arlene Smith. And I am so excited to have you all here with us. And at this point in time, without hesitation, I just want to hand over to none other than drumroll. I want to hand over to Mrs. Arlene Smith for her incredible teaching. So, Miss Arlene
Good
Smith.
afternoon. Thank you. I like the little drum roll, Oh, we're going to have a drum roll this afternoon. So I hope that you all are ready to talk and engage, and everyone will be engaging in this. So thank you for the opportunity. And as we enter into our second session and final session for this, and Ms. Clark, I hope you'll have me back for other conversations. I love dealing with parents and learning. So we're going to start with a little activity this afternoon. And I hope everyone could engage. Did you know? So did you know that we are made up of genes? And we have our same, did you know that some of our temperament and characteristics about us is just like our parents? So our skin color, did you know, and sometimes the color of our eyes and our hair texture, and those internal things and external things that is so similar, like the blood type, did you know? But what I would like to ask this afternoon is, if you know this, do you know? What do you think is your child's temperament? What do you think is your temperament? And are you and your child similar in temperament? So who would like to start? Don't all rush. What do you think is your temperament?
All right. I may not know the categories of my temperament or what categories put my temperament in, but I do think my children have similar traits. Yes, some of my traits, not the best things at times. When you're looking at them, you see yourself staring right back at you. But yes, yeah. I think at times they share similar traits, but at the time I see my husband. So I guess it's on there.
And how does that work out?
Pardon?
How does that work out?
In terms of?
So when persons, when children have similar temperament to their parents, or similar characteristics, the way they behave, it basically comes down to behavior. They see emotions, how they deal with their emotions, that produces a behavior. So when the child is just like you, how does that work out?
Honestly, that could be very irritating. That could be, sometimes it is nice, but so that can be very irritating because just sometimes the comeback that you know you would come back with, you see them hit you right back at it. The attitude, the body language, just what you would do, they doing it. And sometimes it's not the nicest of things. Watching yourself in the mirror, especially when you have to admit, okay, calm down. That's who you're talking to. That's yourself you're seeing right there.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. Evelyn, what about you today?
Hi, good day.
Good day.
I saw something came up on my thing about the screen for unmute, but I just stepped away a bit.
So it says we are asking a question this afternoon. Let me stop it and see if what is happening there. So the question we have this afternoon is, what you believe is your child's temperament, what is your temperament, and are they similar?
Oh, yeah, very much so. But
Mhm.
not all though, because all three had different personality. But one in particular, oh, we always button heads.
Mm. So that child is like, who that child is like, similar to you.
Yeah, yeah.
So how do you feel
Very
with yourself?
very independent, outspoken, and no nonsense person. So there's always, and what they say, like stubborn headed, or how they say it, you know?
Okay, okay, nice.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying nice because sometimes, listen, when you're seeing yourself, it's always nicer.
It
But let
doesn't
me
be
see.
nice. And yeah, they step back and reflect too. And then probably like take it down a bit.
Mhm. Okay, so let me see if you're seeing the PowerPoint better now. Are you able to see it now?
Yeah.
Better? All right, great. So Miss Clark, may I ask you for, as a teacher, a caregiver also, have you ever met a student with your temperament?
Yes, I have a few children, a few daughters that are very similar in nature to me. And I think that over time, in terms of the closeness of the relationship, they would tend to pick up characteristics from you. The more time you spend with somebody, I think in terms of, I guess from their perspective, in terms of, I don't know, respect, admiration, I don't know what you would call it, they would pick up certain qualities from me.
So
Yeah,
thank you all for sharing.
no problem.
So there are three types of, temperament. The other school of thought says sometimes they are more, they do it more scientifically. But I like to just use the simple approach for the purpose of just sharing and people could understand, and it's not an academic forum. So there's the three simple, there's the easygoing child. So, most people ideally likes the easygoing person. So very interactive, easy to go with, very adaptable. Then there's the slow to warm child. So, these are persons who are very, they take a while before they warm up. Let's say slow to warm. So they are not very engaging. They take a while before they adapt to their environment. Many factors have to factor in how long they know you, if they have a desire, if they're willing to take the risk. So the slow to warm. Then most persons, we use a new word now. So we don't use the challenge child or the miserable child or those negative prophecy, self-prophesying words, but we say the active child or the spirited child. And with the spirited child, sometimes people may say, this child, wow, this child just like to be defiant. But the thing about the active child is that they take risks, they challenge authority, not always negatively, but they are the child that will ask the why. They need to know why something is doing. And even some adults is like that. They're not just doing something because you say to do it. You have to be very specific. And if there's a desire or motivation. And sometimes people may say, well, there's a difficult person, but there's a strength and there's also limitations with regards to excuse. Yeah, with regards to um, understanding person's temperament. So you could be either or some persons very situational. Depending on the situation, they have a different temperament. So this afternoon, I just want to recap something here to really help us to understand. According to John Bowlesby, in 1969, the attachment theory. This is very important as we get to understand parenting boys and parenting girls, how they attach. A child's temperament is a way in which he reacts to the world, new situations, people, and experiences. Attachment is an infant Infants' enduring emotional bond with its parents or primary caregivers. And both of these factors affect children not only in infancy, but throughout their lives. Temperament has been shown to be a consistent aspect of a person's behavior over time. Their style of attachment of their primary caregiver often shapes the quality of platonic and romantic relationships with others as they age. A child's temperament can affect a parent's reaction and feeling towards him or her, and subsequently his attachment style. So those are just a mouthful to simply say, just as you all would have said previously, that sometimes your child have your temperament. And sometimes when you all share that, it also affects the way people communicate. It could be positive or it could be negative. Sometimes when you meet yourself, you don't always agree with yourself all the time. But what this Bowlesby theory says to us is that the way that a child attach based on their temperament is how they go on into their different stages of development, connecting with other individuals, whether it's a platonic or romantic relationship. The attachment theory has four things, and it will make sense when we're talking about getting into the meat of the matter today. There's the proximity maintenance. So you will tell me if you have a person like that, where the desire is to be near to the people we are attached to. So some children just love to stick up on the mommy, stick up on the daddy. If they're in school, some children like Miss, they want to come and eat lunch with Miss, they want to be with Miss. So proximity maintenance, they need to be close to you. There are some people offer a safe haven. So they return to the attachment figure for comfort and safety in the face of fear or threats. So I want to ask you all if you all have those people that whenever you're feeling real frightened or you're feeling confused or you have an ethical dilemma, if there's a safe haven person that you go to for clarity and to share and to become very vulnerable. There's the secure base, the attachment figure that acts as a base of security from which the child can explore the surrounding environment. So what that is like, Miss supposed to go on a field trip. Now, if there's a secure base, even if a child is really frightened or they're going down the Caroni swamp and there's sometimes a snake hanging from the tree and the miss say, that's okay, it's okay. Now the tour guide is saying, that's okay, it won't do you anything. And the child is hysterical, screaming, yeah. But miss now becomes that secure base and say, you know, it's okay, it's part of the environment. And that child now just calms down because there's an attachment there. Unlike the tour guide who is an expert, you know, but no, we're not listening to you today. You don't know, you are not the expert here. My safe haven, my secure base is the person I'm going to attach to. Then we have the separation distress. And the separation distress is the anxiety that occurs in the absence of the attachment figure. So little Jane went to school today, was thinking she's going to tell Miss Clark about her night, what happened, all the drama. She's expecting to, and then Miss Clark didn't come to school today. So there's a separation distress. Where's Miss Clark? Why she didn't come? Similarly for other caregivers, where's mommy? Mommy, please, where daddy? Come on, I'm frightened. I just need that. I need you now. And there's a separation distress. Is that clear with everyone? Anyone would like to ask a question thus far? Okay. So as we go on with attachment theory, your attachment theory is really is one of my safe haven because I have seen in adults how much this theory comes alive with parental style or caregiver style and how that person temperament and how they are able to adapt, but most of all, how they see the world based on their experiences. And that's how they attach to other human beings. So if their environment was really a safe place, a secure place, they're very self-assured, they're very responsive, they're interacting with their environment, that person become a very secured individual. So they are able to attach with others, they are able to be adaptable, they have emotional intelligence, adaptable intelligence, they're well-rounded individual. But there are some people now who are preoccupied. Many things could have somebody preoccupied. You know, Miss Clark, like some children in the class, they could just be preoccupied. They're gazing outside, they're focusing on somebody passing, they're feeling anxious, you're teaching a new topic, they're not sure if they'll be able to understand. So a preoccupied person is a person who is self-doubting, and they may feel anxious for everything, like going back out to school in September and they move into a new form and they have to move from the classroom that they are accustomed to. And that child becomes so preoccupied and anxious. Would I like the class? Would I get a space? And similarly for things home. Um, is everything home okay? Is mommy okay? Are we happy? So there are little things that makes children a little anxious. And sometimes they worry for many more things than we can imagine. Today I did a webinar on identifying grief with children, a national webinar. And it's been amazing how the statistics shows that 90% of children, of minors, worry about things, always thinking about things and worrying about things. So then we have the dismissive attachment. So this is a child who doesn't have a strong bond with the caregivers. And what will happen? They become very self-reliant. So there's no really desire to go through the door. If there's a door, they're really just avoidant and distant. Nothing matters because they didn't have the opportunity to really engage and communicate with their environment. Then we have the fearful avoidant. And the fearful avoidant person is who everything seems like just how the picture is self-explained there. They see everything as a block, everything as an obstacle. They are self-sabotaging. They are very unpredictable. They isolate themselves. They just see the world as a dangerous place. And they want to avoid all risk. They avoid communicating with others because there's a fear that when they communicate with others, they will be hurt. And a person who is fearful avoidant is most time also exposed to levels of traumatic experience, child abuse, neglect, sometimes sexual abuse, domestic violence. So there's an explained why for each one of these attachment styles. But if someone gets the appropriate intervention and a therapeutic intervention, that individual can restore to a secure place. So it's not if you're born and you grow up in this dysfunction, you're going to stay there. No, there are so many opportunities now to restore your functioning. So let's go into, so it had to make sense because everything will tie in nice. So now we go into the expert from the theory. And, we're going to really answer the question, is there a difference in parenting boys versus girls? But I'm not going to go by my opinion. I could share sometimes my experience as a clinician, but this is from the expert who would have done the research. And according to Dr. Blackman, who is a psychologist, he says in his research that it really depends on the child. Whether it's a boy or a girl, he said it really depends on the temperament of the child and many other factors, the personality trait, their child's adaptability, the exposure. So he really see it is not really about a boy or a girl, it is based on many factors. But what he have observed and what his study have coined is that boys learn in action. So they talk in fun, whether they're playing a basketball game or they're helping daddy with the mechanic or they're cutting the lawn, when they're busy, when they're doing things. And this, both having boys and a daughter, this made sense to me because I learned when they're active, when they're happy, they're talking and they're moving. Unlike, he said, the girls like conversation. They like to sit and talk. And though this theory may not be the truth for everyone, but I've seen this in my life where my daughter like to engage, she wants me to stop what I'm doing, she wants eye contact. Unlike the boys, they don't need bong for eye contact. They just hear and melt, they hear and melt. So then we have Paul LaFrance, and he's an expert working with adolescents. So one is a psychologist and one is an expert with years working in the field as a clinician with adolescents. And he said that the difference is based on personality type. So they both had this common thing. He said, and based on, apart from the personality type, there are many other factors, and most of all, safety factors that will determine when we are parenting boys and girls. So he doesn't see a difference neither. What he sees is the time you spend with the child. How much time do you spend with respective gender? What are the conversations that you have with them? Is it that you're only quarreling and talking about the chores? Or you have meaningful conversation in how they are going, how they are adjusting, they explaining the world. Remember, we're talking about attachment here, right? We're including attachment. He talks about the parent having the ability or the caregiver to have empathy. So empathy meaning is walking in the person's shoes, understanding where the person is at, spending time to tune in into that person's experience. So it's not about you, but it's about the person. So they said that empathy is the ability to walk in someone else's shoes. You can only imagine. And he said it makes them feel understood. So he said, when we spend time with them, we have healthy conversation and we are able to empathize with them. It makes them feel understood. And he sees this is despite whether it's a male or a female, once these factors, these variables are there in your communication style and the attachment style, then it will seem like it's based on that. Does anyone agree with that thus far?
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, great. So it making sense. So Jonathan McPhee is someone who have 25 years plus experience. This study was done in 2020, so he have more than 25 years. So you could say 27 years of wealth of experience. And he says that he discovered that when we are parenting boys and girls, the thing about is not only focusing on the boys or girls, but he focused on the family, the caregivers aspect of it. And what he discovered in his research is that parents talk but seldom listen. So they have this style that they're doing all the talking and seldom listen to the child. And he says that a child needs to be heard, an adolescent needs to be understood. He said there's a difference between hearing and listening. I could hear you, but I don't want to be listening. So you could be talking, somebody, and you just, I don't even know what you say. I know you're talking, I hear you're talking, but I'm not interpreting because I'm not engaging. He said the ability to listen. It's not only verbal, where you talk, the person talk, but it's this non-sensory thing that must happen. Where your body language, your eye contact, your shoulders coming in close, engaging the person. This sensory, the sensory focuses on our five senses. So your ability to tap in into those senses. Sometimes you're talking with the child and there's a touch or the tone of your voice or the way you look at them with love and interest, or you're listening for the patterns. So there's this sensory dynamic that must take place for this effective attachment, whether it's boy or girl. And it's about the ability, he says, to enter into their world. I know that our kids live in a diverse world. They live in a virtual world. There's so much information they have access to. There's so many choices. We just had black and white choices to make. They have a whole variety to choose from. So he said, no, we have to understand that it is more overwhelming for them. And we have to now enter into their reality to help them problem solve. He says, so this is what he have discovered. He have discovered who are they attached to? Which parent or support? Now, this could be sometimes difficult to digest. Just in case if the child is not attached to you, and they may find the other parent they are more attached to as it pertains to that person listening to them, or sometimes when it is a relative or a teacher. And how some persons may feel offended. But he said, no, you need to know that they are attached to somebody and partner with that person. May it be boy, may it be girl. He said, have you, the parents, screwed up? And how? And this is literally his words. He said, sometimes we pretend that we are perfect, but we too have screwed up. He said, and we must take ownership for when we too have made mistakes and appropriately use them rather than pretending that we are perfect and we never made a mistake. So he said, in that case, sometimes age appropriate, he focused with adolescents too. And he said, ask what work. Ask the child, what will work? Rather than the power rule. I say we're doing this, so we're doing this. But ask the child, what will work for you? Would you rather study when you come home from school from 5 to 7? Would you rather watch a show and then do your homework from 7 to 8? Would you rather go to bed and get up in the morning, 4 o'clock, and do your homework? So what do you rather? And engage them in the decision making. He said the greatest impact is social modeling. There is a rule of thumb that says that 80% of our learning is by social modeling, exposure to different stimuli in our environment. And 20% is what was literally taught by the rules and how much a person learned from their environment rather than by the taught rules, that 80-20 rule. So he said, you know what? When we social modeling, we must be able to show our children our perfections as well as our imperfections. And be honest to say, we're good at some things and we are not good at other things. And it's okay because they know it anyway, they see it. And your imperfections is not just saying, well, I'm not good at this, or well, this is my way. But he said, let your imperfections teach them from it. This making sense or it ain't making sense?
Yes, it makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So we're looking for really effective parenting. Okay, we're not just looking for I am the adult, I am the adult and what I say goes. So the theory from the experts is that children live what they see and they duplicate behaviors. And I believe this is truly true. He said, if the child's environment is very irresponsible, if they become very self-absorbed and interested in engaging, you want to engage that child. Because if they're very irresponsible and they're coming from a very irresponsible environment, they become very self-absorbed because everybody's seeing for themselves. So what he recommends, instead of engage your child, be a little more engaging. Where there's ignorance, they're really unaware of parenting principles. Some people is just, they were never taught. I thank God for now webinars like these and learning opportunities and a national forum now, and even more in the time of the pandemic, that we are exposed to more education because we really would not know. So we would have been ignorant to parenting principles. We talk about insecurity. So these are general things that affect families and the child will now pattern that behavior. So if there's insecurities, some parents are so insecure that they are afraid of their children's anger and rejection. So the child have a behavioral problem, but you don't want the child to be angry and you don't want the child not to like you, so you are enabling the behavior. So he said that represents insecurity and they will now be modeling that insecurity. He spoke of inconsistent, being very inconsistent. So no inner convictions or standards and very indecisive. When we are inconsistent, what it means is when we don't have clear boundaries on how things are. So for example, sometimes the parents may say, all right, everybody going to bed 8 o'clock. And then tomorrow, everybody went to bed 10 o'clock. And for the next 3 or 4 days, she said nothing, he said nothing. But then somebody didn't wash the wares. And they said, listen, it's 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock. You're going back to bed 8 o'clock. So it talks about when we are inconsistent with our rules and the way we do things. So 1 minute it might be okay for the child to come in your room and lie down on your bed. And then another day when you are upset and you don't want nobody in your space, you say, get out of my room. So he said, when children grow up in a very inconsistent environment where there's no inner convictions or no standards, they become a very indecisive person because they really don't know, should I or should I not? Should I, And we can see some truth to this. And then when persons are inflexible, they fail to adapt. Now, I tell you this much, adaptability is a skill by itself. It don't just come with common sense. You have to different stimuli, different experience that makes a person adaptable or not. So he said, when we inflexible, when you don't know how to be adaptable, you're really failing to adapt. And what will happen as it pertains to the 4 stages of parenting responsibilities, you will be to and fro. So 1 minute you're authoritarian, the next minute you're authoritative, the next minute you're permissive, the next minute you're neglectful. So he said this inflexibility is like the rock, then you bring some structure, then you're like a burst rubber band, then you're like a ghost. So he said when children see these things, they adapt and they become the same way. Could anybody relate to this, that some of the things we do is just like what we saw our parents did? Jasmine, what do you think?
I agree. I do agree. And particularly for the ignorant stage, where some of our parents did not have these material available to them to guide them. So they just, did it from what they would have experienced or what they think was best in the situation.
And
So I
some
have
of them
seen
did
that.
a
I've seen
great
the
job.
inconsistency. Yes, yes. So it's very true.
I really applaud them, what they did with no information. Some of them, they did a good job, some better than others. So the theory from the experts say why children disobey. So again, I hope you're seeing with the boys and girls, if they have a leaning on one side to say that boys are better children or girls are better. No, it's not that. These are persons who would have done research across cultures, across diversities. And they said that children may disobey for many factors. So you can't just put to the root. He said that some persons have psychological hindrance. They might have a disability. They might have health issues. They might have different disorders. Some where their parents know and some that have gone undetected. I remember a parent sharing a child with discipline, very indisciplined. But what she was describing, I said, when the baby was born, when she was born, did you take her to do her routine checkup? So she said, yes. I said, when she was about 5, going to do her little vaccination, did you do? And then she said, they said she had a trace of autism. And the parents were in denial. They didn't want to accept the diagnosis. They believed that she would have grown out of it. But now that she's entering into adolescence, she's having abnormal and maladaptive behaviors because it was a medical issue that is not being addressed, a disability. And some people may refuse or don't want to accept a psychological hindrance. They just can't conceive the fact that the child not normal, at least normal the way they define normal. The studies show that inattentiveness. So there are some children, they're just very inattentive. They don't pay attention to the environment. And he said that sometimes we enable the behavior by the drive-by style, the parent. So you pass and you say, John, I tell you to make up your bed, and you go. He said, you may say this once and only once, and you get it. But if a child who is very inattentive, they come like Miss Clark in class, and there are some children very inattentive. And she said, I've given this definition once and I'm done. That's a drive-by style. So the children who are very attentive will get it. But the inattentive one who now trying to gather their thoughts and come back in the classroom because they was laughing for somebody past, they will miss it. And then we will see that that person disobedient, but they're really inattentive. He said that some children are very distractions. They have a lot of distractions, whether it's toys or games or TV or social media. And if they don't have time out, if you don't give them time out, they are very distracted by that. So that consume all the time. I am guilty of that. I have a child is consumed by game and just very quiet, and I'm guilty of that. So now I'm trying to implement the timeout aspect of it. I don't know how successful I am, but I'm trying my best. So there's the dominant enthusiasm. This is the child like a trigger. They act first and think later. And some of us, if we understand our temperament, even adults, there are some adults like that. They just lose the cool, they say what they have to say, and then later they say, oh God, maybe I shouldn't have said it so, or maybe I shouldn't have said it at all. So there are some people, they call it dominant enthusiasm. They like, these are people who say, I speak in my truth, who vex loss, but not understanding that they act and then think. Although that may be a truth, sometimes there's consequences to that behavior. And people may say that you're disobedient or you disobey. He said that some individuals are apathy. Apathy is just a nice word for lazy. And they don't want to do any chores. They don't like to do nothing. Everything isn't fair. Everything isn't fair at all. It's not fair. Why I alone have to do it? If you have more than 2 children in a house, or at least more than one, you would have heard that everything isn't fair by one child, if not all of them. Then there's the temporary test mode. This is testing your boundaries. Now, here are some of these styles and temperaments. We adults are struggling with the same thing. So the temporary testing the mood. So they finish school and you might expect them home by 4. And they come home 10 past 4 and you ain't say nothing. And they say, oh, okay. They come home 4:30 and you ain't say nothing. They start to come home 5. So they're testing the boundaries. So they might stoop and you might ignore, and they realize, oh, no response. Okay, so stooping is acceptable. They stoops. Then they may go on to say, damn, and then they keep. So they push in the boundaries. And even us adults, it's the same way. So if we have a boss who, when you go to lunch, you could come back a little 10 minutes late from lunch. Some people will reach back half an hour late. Some people might decide that they ain't working for the rest of the evening, or they know when I don't eat, I just feel lazy. So they say this is a temporary test mode that people do. And children and adolescents does it likewise. They're testing the boundaries. And then there's the overpowering temptation. Oh my God, you all, this is like so many people are guilty of it. Some people are curious, George. They want to test to see what will happen. And for teenagers, it's something that we really have to monitor, because Curious George could lead somebody down to experiment drugs, sexual activity, get himself in risky behavior. Just Curious George want to run away and jump through a window to go a party. They just have this overpowering temptation that they can't help themselves. And some adults are like that too. Like they can't help themselves. It's just they allow their emotions to lead them and rule them. And he said it have the deceptive rebellion. The person that must win. No matter what's the argument, the temperament of that child is rebellious. They're just like deceptive. They must win at any cost. And sometimes as we interact with our adult relationships, we see people the same way. So again, it's a learned behavior, but it's also learned by our children. So they give some solution, because I said a mouthful there, and they give some solution. Are there any questions before we get into the solutions?
Can you just go over the point where you made as to why the children do not obey as it relates to apathy?
Apathy. So apathy.
You say that they make up excuses.
Right. So some children with apathy may experience laziness. So laziness is a relevant thing, right? Laziness can mean that sometimes they didn't learn we didn't teach them to be independent, to do chores. So one morning we get up and we decide they're big now, and they find that why I had to do it, because we have been doing it all the time. So sometimes apathy is an enabling behavior by parents. We didn't teach them responsibility. We didn't teach them to contribute in the house. And then one morning we want the radical change, and they are just lazy because they didn't have to do it before, you know? And that's a common thing in most families. There's always one not so willing child. So some of the solutions that Dr. Mark Gonzalez gives to us. He says, when to deal with psychological hindrances, he talks about the importance of medical checkups. And throughout children's stages of development, it is very important for us to take them for medical checkups. Um, so for inattentiveness, he speaks of the importance of making eye contact, paraphrasing, meaning, you heard what I said, Johnny? I said to get up and make up your bed and organize. And the importance of feedback. So you're making sure they hear you. Yeah, mommy, I hear you. Okay, mommy. So he said to do this, call them by the name. Don't just say it and pass by. Call them by the name so they become alert. He said with regards to distraction, some people are just distracted by so many things, games, social media, the importance of timeout, but also rewards. So if they do good, they could play the game a little more, they could have privileges. So he said that helps with distraction because there's this reward element of it. For the child that is, or children who is dominant enthusiasm, he said this is the child that you have to really sit with them and let's talk about it. Help them to problem solve. Their frontal lobe is developing where they're learning their motor skills and reasoning and the emotions. So you help to strengthen that muscle. And you can do this through talking, you can do it through games, or giving them problem solving approach. You might have a problem in the family and they say, what's your opinion on this? Then we have the apathy, again, which means laziness. And what they suggest for that is you start the chores together with them. So you might say, you wash the wares and I pack away the dishes, I wipe it, or vice versa. And you gradually or progressively reward them, but also giving them the independence. So you do it for a time, and then you have a reward element. They might get a favorite sandwich or snack, some people $5. You're not bribing them, but you're just encouraging the child to come out of that apathy. And then the temporary test mode. It is very important for us to remember our rules. And there's timeout, so you're teaching them consequences, loss of privileges, speaking firmly but calm, because you want not a punitive approach or a punishment approach, but rather you want a learning approach, a discipline approach that incorporates learning and consequences. So in this way, they get in to understand submission, they're understanding rules. So these rules will apply to in the workplace, in their marriage as they grow older, in different communities. And if you are having challenges to achieve this goal, he advised to get in professional help to help you with it, because it will affect that adult in their adult interactions. And for the overpowering temptations, you have to really set limits. Limit peer interactions, because you want to know who they're spending time with. If they have an overpowering temptation, it means that that child could be easily persuaded, easily misled. So you want to now protect, ensure the type of Then we have the 11 to 14 age, where there's the coaching stage. And in this stage is where you encourage them to do their best. So it kind of moved from the captain stage, which is wearing the captain hat and you making all the decisions, to this coaching stage where you are encouraging them like a coach. Think of it like sporting. And you are really encouraging them to be the best in their homework, to be the best in their character, to be the best person in all their interactions. And from 15 to 19 is the counsel stage. And this is where a lot of children and young people, neither boy or girl, either one will ask a lot of questions and they want answers to point them away. They want to discuss things. They want to challenge their belief system. They want to explore. So if you are understanding, each stage of our children's life requires us as a caregiver to adapt to a different role. Now, the challenge with for most caregivers is that we don't adapt well. So we may want to be the captain throughout all their stages of their life. And what happens is sometimes they shut us out of their life because they don't need you to be the captain. I am now 15. I want you to be the counselor. I want to sit down. I want you to listen. I want you to hear me out. And then from 20 and beyond, you are the consultant. And the consultant is a self-supported single. You are supporting them whether they are single or they are married. You are offering insight and supporting them in their decisions. So sometimes when our kids are 20s, most of them now, they just come to hear your point of view, or sometimes they just want you to hear where they act. So it really takes on the characteristics of a consultant and how important it is for us to know as parents where our children act and how to adapt to the needs of that child based on where they act. And always remember, as I come to an end, it is easier to build a strong child than to repair a broken man. Are there any questions? And I wish to say thank you for the opportunity. Are there any questions? Ms. Clark, I will hand over to you. And thank you again for the opportunity.
Problem. And thank you so much for such an informative session. I really, really enjoyed it. And even like with one of the slides, you just had me thinking oh so much. And that was in terms of like, who are my safe havens? And I just started to do some introspection and a lot of reflection. And then I was able to identify, when there are lots of life changes and stuff like that, I know who to go by. And then when I think of like people in terms of like close proximity is like, okay, is have certain people you know that you need to be sounding boards, just they're general. And then when I have like major life issues, so like in the case of death or in the case of something significant, like say in terms of marriage or getting married or both positive and negative, that you know that it have those people that, yeah, I just need to hear your voice. I just need to express myself. And then, I'm going to be able to recalibrate and then set off and I'll be like, you just adjust me and I'm good to go and do what I need to do. So I really, really enjoyed your insights. And it was very needed for me even right now. So it's like, and I think I've become a little bit more appreciative of the different layers of people that I have in my circle, and even in terms of you identifying your own traits in terms of what it is. And coming back from the first session, we are all parents, and knowing yourself and then knowing the characteristics of your students is going to, or your children, is going to help you be a whole lot more effective and effective in terms of doing what needs to do in terms of their growth and in their success at the end of the day. So I just want to say thank you so much. I don't know if you all have anything that you would want to share with Mrs. Smith.
Mrs. Smith, thank you once again. I did join late. I did miss the first part of the session, but I'm very grateful that I was able to still grasp the concepts that you was speaking about in the latter part and the theories. I'm very thankful, and I want to thank you again for sharing your knowledge with us and for explaining it in such detail. Thank you very much, Mrs. Smith.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hi, good night. I too would like to say thanks much, Miss Smith and Miss Clark. Very informative and enlightening, I must say. Only I only have a problem. It's too short.
No, well, you see, when it's short and sweet, there's where people can return. We have
I
plenty to
know.
talk about, right?
Yes.
But
So stay
yeah,
tuned to
plenty to
follow
talk
up. There's some other sessions in the pipeline, so stay abreast.
Yes, but very informative, very informative.
All right. Thank you so much. And I guess that is it. And then we have a message from Miss Benjamin in the, I guess I'll read it out. She says, thanks for a timely session. It is appreciated. So again, thank you so much, Mrs. Smith.
you.
Y'all, I guess I'll share. I don't know, it's weird, but I'll share. So I am wearing black today, and I went to a funeral of a fellow teacher today, and who is also a friend of mine that I went to secondary school and stuff with. And in the funeral, a lot of us students were there, they wore their uniform. People from different walks of different aspects of her life was there to celebrate her. And even in this session, where you're learning of characteristics, where you're learning so many different things, I was just piecing together things, and I'm like, yo, this is like mind blowing in terms of, it was really for me, mind blowing in terms of the safety nets that parents and teachers and more or less adults in children life provide. And let's be better parents. And while I know you're already better parents by just seeking knowledge and seeking to know where you are at and to grow. So I think I'll end there. Yeah. So thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a blessed night, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Hi.
Thank you, Kayla.
No problem.
Same to you guys. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.